Being part of the ISV Connect program helps our visibility with Microsoft sellers, which in turn helps us when we're introduced to new partners.
It has accelerated our entrance into new markets, and our product is developing with higher quality and at higher speed than it would otherwise have.
Things like ISV licensing, handling our licenses just like any Microsoft first-party applications. We see that as a big benefit.
What ISV Connect program introduced is very different level of confidence with our customer. And with the Microsoft expanding the program, we are expecting to grow our ISV portfolio significantly.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another installment of ISV Connect Live. My name is Brian Galicia, and I lead our global Dynamics 365 ISV business here at Microsoft. It's an honor and pleasure to have Lior, who's the CEO of inVia Robotics, join me today. Before we get directly to him and start the show, wanted to give everyone context to the show itself and a couple of housekeeping items, just so that you have the best experience possible on the platform. So, of course, we're doing this on LinkedIn Live. This is a live event. Lior is kind enough to carve out time out of his busy day, especially on a Monday, first thing in the morning, to have this conversation. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. So if you're watching from the LA area, which Lior is actually doing this from, or Seattle, so this is kind of the West Coast theme today, or anywhere in between, anywhere in the US, maybe you're watching from Europe, maybe you're watching from Asia or South America, wherever it is, feel free to put that in the comment window and we'll give you a quick shout out because we do appreciate you taking the time to actually watch the live event. You could also do the same thing if you end up watching the replay. And then during the event, if there's a question, because this conversation we're going to have today is super interesting when you think about robotics and the impact that can do in business process. We are going to be having various dialogue throughout the 30 minutes we have. And if you have questions, feel free to put that in the window as well, and we can maybe have time for one question that I can ask Lior directly. And then finally, during the event, if you just want to utilize one of the LinkedIn emojicons, support, like, etc., that also gives Lior and I some insight and some context that the content we're actually talking about is actually resonating with people watching. So without further ado, Lior, thank you so much for making the time today to speak with me. So the first question that we always typically ask the guests that join us are, what's your role? Of course, I think everyone knows what a CEO does, but it's always great to hear, especially from specific people, what things you do in your organization, the great organization inVia Robotics. And then a nice icebreaker question I always ask all my guests is, what's one thing not on your LinkedIn profile? And I'll give people a hint. You might talk about something that you see in the background that during the pre-show type of work we were doing that came up. So Lior, why don't we start? Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. So first off, as a CEO, really what I do is I take credit for everybody's hard work. I have an amazing team behind me who they're just nonstop. So one of the things that I try to provide is maybe more of a coherent vision for everybody to kind of follow. And then I'm a little bit hands-on, so I like to, kind of go around and see what I could do to help as well, which does stress my team a little bit. So I try to stay out of that as much as possible, but it's really hard. I like to be in the weeds as well. So, but again, from a high level, providing the vision, trying to see that, make sure we're staying consistent in the vision. And one of the things I've learned, actually, what you're talking about is one of the things that's not in the LinkedIn. So I'm a very avid sailor, sailed across both oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic, sailed around the Med. And one of the things I learned, it's actually very similar, I think, to startups and, being a captain on the boat I feel like there's a lot of parallels. So first of all, the wind out there is really like the economy. Like I can't control it. It's you get what you get. It's not, you always you've been taught to sail the wind you have, not the wind you wish you had, not the wind you think you got to have. You got to sail the wind you have. And really what you have is tuning the sails. And a lot of times, especially in sailboats, we can't go in the same direction. The wind is usually against us or for us or even. So you have to take extra miles. You have to go out of your way and sort of predict where the wind will be. For example, the chart behind me, that was the Transpac race that we did to Hawaii. And over there, you have this high pressure that moves up and down, sort of like the economy, trying to predict where it's going to be. And you're trying to predict this like a week out. You can't, and this is really difficult. Right now, the best models can maybe do 3 days out. So if you get this right, then you get to sort of cash out because you're taking extra miles to go around. But if you get it right, you get to cash out and you can kind of sling over and do a really good job. So I think it's the same thing with startups where, the economy, you don't know what product you're going to end up getting. And, somebody might buy something and they might not buy something. And you got to be at the right place and sort of predict some of that stuff and really take extra miles, take a lot of failures, take a lot of different iterations till you finally kind of get it right. And then you're able to sling over. So, obviously with startups takes us a little bit longer to form the companies where, here this is like a, 2-week race and it's done. So, but yeah, we'd also love to, talk about it even more. So
I love it, Lior. I should, when we first got a chance to chat last week, it was obvious. It should have been obvious to me. It's like, that was a passion you were seeing those sales boat and then the chart, the C chart. I guess hopefully the win has been very favorable throughout the conversation. We truly appreciate the opportunity for Microsoft to be some of that win that's propelling inVia Robotics in this joint partnership that we're going to be talking about. So one follow-up question to that that I held off, I was going to ask you in our pre-show this morning, but I'm going to ask you now, is what is the name of your sailboat then?
Oh, so this sailboat back there, that was a previous sailboat that I had, name was Celestra. And the current one is named Cylon, and it's based on Battlestar Galactica.
Ah, nice.
So Celestra used to be the ship that was on the human side, and not Cylon with the robots obviously on the other side. So
I love it. Well, it's funny because I might not look at it, but that show, I know I look younger than I look, but I grew up very early watching that show, and the famous character Starbucks, and of course the remake that they did, etc. I'm not sure. It was a mixed bag. It was interesting, but I'm like, I miss the old metal robots with the eyes back and forth, and the button as they flash out of, or they hit the boost button or whatever that button was that pushed them out of the tube to propel them into space. But yeah, thank you so much, Lior, for sharing. A quick shout out as well. So Kristen, thank you so much for joining. It's great to hear a bright, sunny Monday morning in Los Angeles. I can't say the same thing about Seattle. Last weekend, well, we've had a ton of smoke, and it was sunny for, it was interesting. We had a very long summer, but because of the wildfires here in Washington, it was a little smoky, but it's finally started to rain, and the weather went from 80 degrees the prior weekend to 40 degrees, which is like, it was interesting. It lost 40 degrees in a full week, but thanks, Kristen, for watching. So, Leo, why don't we just get to the meat of the conversation? And one of the questions I asked to start out to give people context, because people would think, okay, what does inVia Robotics do? And of course, the namesake kind of alludes to that. And for people watching, you could kind of see over Leo's left shoulder. That's one of the robots that kind of drive the value proposition they bring. So maybe you could describe a little bit, Leo, what does inVia Robotics do? Like, you think about manufacturing or retailers, and it's really interesting because we were talking about this in the pre-show. Maybe you can talk about, okay, what are things that you're seeing in the industry, and how does inVia Robotics help to solve those things, and the work you and your teams are doing to help address these challenges that people are experiencing to make the supply chain more efficient.
Sure. So yeah, so like you kind of alluded to, so inVia Robotics, we help out a lot of our customers in the logistics space and across the logistics space. So whether it's in manufacturing or retail, 3PLs, and really we help them to become more efficient, to be able to handle what everybody's seeing today, which is e-commerce. And I think a lot of people don't quite realize that when you order something online, talking about a little bit Star Trek themes. Really, people want the Star Trek replicator, right? You look online, you click a button, and you want it to appear in your doorstep within an hour, maybe 2 days. After 2 days, you're like, forget about that. And that takes a lot of work right now. We don't have any machine right now that can, manipulate matter to just form it. So we have to do it the old-fashioned way. And one of the issues is that there's a lot of people that don't want to work in that industry. So our customers are often under a lot of pressure to try to really deliver these things in time. And inside the warehouse, it becomes very, very complex. I mean, just try to imagine guiding traffic throughout the whole city. And you have a warehouse manager is really sort of working these, the traffic lights and trying to make sure there's no dead blocks. And, in the beginning when you only had like maybe, 100 items that you were delivering, that was manageable. But now, some of our customers have 100,000 different items, some of them close to 500,000 different items. That becomes extremely complex, and every customer orders very randomized stuff. So at inVia Robotics, we're helping them becoming a lot more efficient, both in the software. So we're actually providing a software to basically digitize the whole warehouse. And then obviously, like you see behind me, we're offering robots to supplement the labor and make people a lot more efficient. So often we can get between 5x to 10x efficiency in the whole space and inside the warehouse. So very proud of it. And it is a difficult thing, but again, I think it's an amazing thing. A lot of people, when they grow up, they say, I don't want to work in the warehouse. What we're really trying to do is convert also these warehouses to the point that, people want to work there, because it becomes almost like a spaceship. It's a completely different environment. You're no longer running around picking items, dealing with robots, dealing with sophisticated systems. And I think that's how we're going to be able to build the new generation of commerce, right? Where we're ordering things online and things appear immediately.
I love it, Leor, because I mean, if my wife was on this this call, she would love it, because she's a big Star Trek fan, and the fact that you can say Earl Grey tea on the Star Trek Enterprise, and all of a sudden it just magically appears.
Yep.
You're making that come to life, and you can imagine, for anyone who's been in a warehouse before. I know you have many times. I have as well in my career, and it's amazing when you think about how big these are in the logistics. Like, I guess a good best example is Costco. You think about Costco and how big that is, and you have to go. Like when the basic thing that we always get is toilet papers, which is in the way back. It's always in the back corner. But you have to walk through that thing and imagine, to your point, the traffic that has to occur if you're trying to get that, if you had a robot getting that to the very front. I think all of us who may be Disney fans have watched, what's that movie? WALL-E.
Yeah.
And you think about WALL-E, and that towards the end, and you realize, oh my gosh, all these people are on a big ship because planet Earth got overgrown with trash and all this stuff, and basically traffic cops of all the robots and the people moving around the ship.
Yep.
And I can imagine those robots like the one behind you making that more efficient. I love it. So when we get to the next question, before we do that, let me do a quick shout out to Rob. So Rob, thank you so much. And I can imagine, yes, being foggy, and my wife's parents are actually from the Bay Area, so know that well. And so thanks for making the time to watch, Rob. So Leor, maybe you could describe, through what you just talked about with the value proposition. It's amazing, because that's a huge value proposition that potential customers in manufacturing and retail can have. Maybe you can articulate, like, what's the Microsoft partner ecosystem, that experience had been like for you. I know that you have probably people on your team working very closely with people on my team, driving these initial conversation success, but it's been great because when you first came up on my radar a couple of months ago, because you're being recruited by someone on my team, you're already exposed to Microsoft events. Like, all of a sudden, the stuff you do was catching the attention from Microsoft leaders, because the innovation that's needed to drive the next generation of logistics and what end customers want to do. So maybe you can talk about a little bit about what's been that Microsoft partnership, and hopefully we've been somewhat of the predictable wind driving some of that experience for you.
Yeah. So first off, it's really been amazing to work with the Microsoft team. I feel like, everybody from all the different teams, and you guys have different teams, work on different aspects of, this solution. Just amazing to work with, and I've been pushing things forward, actually pushing us even faster, which is amazing, because, you don't expect this from a big company to sort of work on this startup type of mentality, but I love it. And then just to kind of explain a little bit how we're working together. So as you guys probably know, so Microsoft has Dynamics 365, which is a WMS system. And we have one of our component is the inVia Logic, which is a WES, a warehouse execution system. And a lot of people have the question, like, well, why do I need a WES? Why doesn't WMS does it? And I think the way to sort of explain that is, if you look at the WMS has the what needed to be done. So often it has, all the orders, all the inventory updates, and says, hey, here, warehouse manager, often says, good luck, fill it all up. And the WES has the how. How do we go about doing it? So you can think of, WMS in the traffic analogy. I need to move all these cars from point A to point B, and the WES is the system that would execute traffic light patterns to make sure all that moves as efficiently as possible. So in the warehouse, we basically work with Dynamics 365. We get all the orders, we get all the, updates for inventory, all the things that has to be done, and we coordinate everything in a very sophisticated fashion to make sure everything flows out the door and at the highest level meets the SLA, which is a very, very important topic right now for a lot of our customers, because a lot of people like basically say, look, if you order this day, we'll have either same day delivery or next day delivery, and they have to meet that. So it really means you have to coordinate a lot of these items and how they move around. And obviously in the warehouse, you got a lot of different challenges. Every once in a while, you might come short. You might go to a location and it's not there anymore, and you have to execute against, a replan procedure to go bring that over. Now that has to be done in a certain time because again, you have that SLA, you have that clock that's ticking to get that order out the door. So, our systems work together basically hand in hand to coordinate with each other and make sure we're getting those orders out the door. And obviously we're able to add robots as well to supplement the labor. So in a lot of installations where our customers really, having a hard time finding employees, finding people to go and execute the movements, we're able to add these robots to basically do those movements for them. In some sense, shrinking the warehouse. So instead of you having to go to Costco and walk all the way around in Costco, you're able to just stay by the cash register and the items come to you, so you don't have to walk around basically. And that's what we do. And between those two, we've helped many of our customers really thrive in this environment. And a lot of times, customers really try to even just survive and compete against Amazon, which is really difficult. But now they're able to thrive. They're able to provide. Not only their cost goes down, but they're able to provide better, more aggressive SLAs, which again, consumers are demanding more and more, right, to get this stuff out there. So, we're very excited by this partnership, and we have a native integration now with Dynamics 365, and really we're able to work with everybody across the chain to do that and to work with that. And obviously, like, a few months ago, we were out in Mesa, Hanover, co-exhibiting this stuff together. So we're very, very excited. And like I said, it's been amazing to work with that.
Thank you, Lior. I mean, everything you described is super fascinating because the term, of course, many of us have heard warehouse management systems and WMS, but the E that you referenced, that was a great analogy. And I love the fact that not only can you do that across the manufacturing industry, because people think, oh, that's really manufacturing. It's retailers too.
Yeah.
And being able to have, whether it's an actual physical good, but I can imagine parts. I mean, people assembling types of things, and exactly what you said. If I'm building a spaceship to a boat to a car, whatever it is, and the ability to find that part. And of course, someone has a picker. There's a picker that goes and selects it, but then it's like, to your point, how do I execute it so that I don't have to run across a warehouse to go grab it? Maybe automation, and of course, maybe those fun little red robots. You're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. I'm like, oh, all of a sudden it shows up, and then you're able to put that into the box or a shipping container or package to get that somewhere. That's great. So one of my favorite questions, of course, you described all this amazing innovation that inVia Robotics is doing. Maybe you could talk about, now that you said, hey, here's a partnership and some of the things we're doing and the value propositions you're bringing to the table. What are some of the early conversations you're witnessing? And especially, it must be exciting because people are like, oh, I want to talk to the CEO about this amazing innovation. So maybe you can describe a little bit about some of the examples of these conversations we're having jointly in our end customers for Dynamics, for our finance and operations WMS solution, and pairing your solution on top of it. What are some of those conversations that are coming out where customers are realizing, oh my gosh, Leo, like, we're so inefficient. I had no idea that if we took your stuff and put it on top of what we're doing in Dynamics, the cost savings, the efficiencies, to your point, people and resourcing, all this stuff all become much more effective because you're making things in the process more efficient.
Sure. So there's a couple of customers now that we're actually in talks with, and one of them is in the pharmaceutical industry. So you can imagine, shipping drugs that have huge implications. First of all, if you make a mistake, could be very detrimental. And that's something that obviously the robots don't ever make a mistake. They're very things. So we are humans. We're the ones who make a mistake. And what happens normally in a warehouse, the first time that you're doing some sort of a replan, you might have a person who will put the wrong item in the wrong location. Now, what that does is next time you're trying to pick it, you're going to send a person to that location. Well, it's going to be wrong. And there might be a 50-50 chance that they won't even realize it and just grab that wrong item. So one of the things we do with the robots is obviously, there still could be mistakes. Somebody entered the data wrong in the database, but obviously we could correct that right away and we never make that mistake again, because basically the robots will always go to that location, or if you tell them to go put something in a location, they'll always put it in that location 100%. There is no mistakes, right, that the robots will do or something like that. So obviously, from a mistake level, we're able to sort of bring the warehouse into almost, perfect efficiency in terms of delivering the stuff. So again, food pharmaceutical, it's extremely, extremely important to make sure you're doing that, and to make sure that you're delivering the product as quickly as possible, right? If somebody needs the medication, they need it now. It's not like, oh, I can wait a week for it, to come in the mail. They really need it right away. So getting into those, like I said, those tight SLAs, and making sure there's also priorities in certain orders, right? If somebody orders something that is extremely important, that you need it right now, then we can get that out the door and get it smoothly out there. So that's extremely important. The other talks we had was with OEMs for cars, parts, and things like that. And I think one of the things people don't realize is if when you go to the dealer, and actually I'm sure a lot of people realize that, right? When they're like, oh, we don't have the part in stock, we gotta wait. And then if you wait, they start to give you a rental, and there's a lot of money that's involved every minute that this part does not show up. So obviously, again, getting those parts, getting those tight SLAs, bringing that over saves a lot of money, saves the consumer. I mean, imagine going to the dealers, and having some random part that goes bad, and within an hour they're able to replace it and move that over. That requires very, very, tight logistics. Even, when you're flying airplanes, I don't know how many times I've been on an airplane and said, hey, we're missing a fuel pump. Sorry, we're gonna have to, get off. And so I fly a lot, so that happens once in a while. And again, those things are they're becoming very, very important to bring those items into, people's doorstep, not just, the clothing that we buy, but also important things, so it's very exciting, to be in that. And like I said, both of them are Dynamics 365 customers, so we're very excited to bring that over and move on that quickly.
Yeah, Lior, gosh, those two examples are amazing. And it made me pause and go, how many times have we been to like Home Depot, and you go into the bolt section, and when you mentioned about the pharmaceutical critical that is, how often do you just go in there and go, oh, that's this size, and you just grab whatever's in there, and then you get home and realize, oh, someone put the wrong bolt in that thing. I think it was amazing. And then of course we've all had our cars go to a car dealership, and not just for the end consumer, but the dealership also has to bear a burden to that, because most dealerships, well, some who've not transitioned to Uber or something like that to get you home, but the fact that, oh, geez, now it's another day that I have this consumer's car, but I'm paying a day to have them have a rental that could have gone to someone else, and that the inefficiencies because that car is parked in their lot, waiting done something to be done, and they can't do anything because they don't have the part to actually complete it. So I love those analogies. And so before we wrap up, and again, if anyone watching live has a question for Leo, feel free to put that in the comments section. But maybe, Leo, before we get to the wrap-up questions, maybe you could talk about, it's amazing, this innovation I'm sure is continuing to happen. So maybe what do you see from your lens on what do you think will be happening in the industry for logistics across manufacturing and retail that's exciting, that maybe your organization is pivoting to? Because we're always thinking about whatever's today, that's great, but there's all the stuff that's happening. Maybe you can talk about some of the things that you foresee happening that's going to elevate not just the partnership, but elevate the scenario you're doing with us on Dynamics.
Yeah, so that's something that, it's a really interesting question, because I think one of the things that we saw with logistics, right, is just basically just-in-time delivery of certain items. And what we're seeing now, and actually one of our customers already in the process of implementing that, is basically manufacturing 2.0, where now you're not only ordering the part that already been generated, but you're ordering a product, a customized product, and get it delivered, within an hour or 2 days. So really on that time scale. So imagine, having to go somewhere and you need some clothing, but you need some sort of a customization to them, but really getting in within an hour or 2 hours. So how do you do that? In our particular example, the customer that we have that is working on it, they're doing not consumer, but B2B electronics, a lot of sensors, a lot of things like that. And what they do is they have different modules that you can order. So you can order a very customized module, with a certain spec, with a certain thing. And our robots are basically bringing in those parts in real time in those sub-assemblies and then a person will assemble it. So a person might not understand, if they're assembling the green knob or the blue knob or something like that, right? The robots are bringing in the right amount, and then the person will assemble that. So you can still get the assembly line type of facility, right? So to get that out, to get that quickly. And if you look at orders, actually, retail orders, they're almost the same as manufacturing in some sense, right? They're taking a bunch of parts, they're combining it, except combining it is a very simple process. They're just putting it in a box and sending it over. Where in, what we're seeing now is basically you take these customized parts, and then you have a person who's combining them into a product and then shipping it out. And I think this is really exciting. And again, probably a few years out, but we're going to start seeing more and more of these like customized shops that are able to get you customized products in real time, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, who doesn't want a manufacturing 2.0 to have things just be assembled super quick and put that in an ability to where when you put that together, it comes to you fairly quickly because the efficiencies through the logistics process. That is fantastic, Leo. So maybe you can talk about how, as we wrap up, people listening, either live or replay, if they're a Microsoft seller, like what should they be thinking about? Maybe it's a partner in manufacturing or retail that's deploying Dynamics and going, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there was an ISV out there that did these types of things. Maybe you can talk about that. And then finally, manufacturing or retail customers that come across this going, wow, this is super interesting. Maybe you could talk about like what next steps, what could they be doing? And of course, we're on LinkedIn. And so first and foremost, I always say, connect with Leo or connect with me. Because we'd love to, again, connect with you if this dialogue is interesting, point you in the right direction. But maybe, Leo, you can talk about what should be people thinking about as next steps?
Sure. So one obviously is, to work with one of the partners that's going to be able to provide the solution that they need. And one of the things that we provide, and some of the partners provide as well, is a consultative approach. So, when you come in, you can kind of tell us what are the pain points, what are the problems that you have. And we have actually the ability of creating a digital twin of the warehouse. So we're able to show, how will this benefit you in the warehouse, and especially the first piece, which is the digitization phase. So really understanding where all the movements are, fixing any issues even in real time, and guiding that traffic in real time. For example, we have customers who use our software to guide their forklift drivers, because if you get two forklifts that are going in the same aisle, the productivity just drops because now somebody has to back out. And so being able to guide that. So obviously there's a lot of different abilities that we're able to do, and Microsoft partners are able to do, the ISVs. So I would recommend, again, contacting one of them, asking about the solutions. If you're Dynamics 365, you can also just add us. We're on the web app application. You can just add us in there, and we can start from there. But there's a lot of consultative approach that we take, that we make sure that the solution that we're providing is actually solving the pain points that you're having, not just hey, here's another automation that's pretty cool. We want to make sure that no, this is actually going to help you thrive in this environment. So obviously contact one of us and we'll be happy to talk.
I love it, Leo. So I'm going to flash up a site that people can just screenshot, write it down. This goes directly to the AppSource listing, their IP. They were talking about robotic e-commerce automation. That goes directly to the IP, so you can learn more about it. And of course, there's links on that to not only just learn more, but also to contact. And of course, you have Leo, the CEO, on the call. But that's one way to go do it. The other thing we're going to go do as we wrap up, we do have 3 people on your team. We do have about a little over a minute video that really describes some of the things that you touched upon, Leo, that when I watched is super exciting. So please stay on for about a minute after we close out the event. But any last comments or parting words, Leo, before we wrap it up and go to the video?
Sure. So one quick note that I think that people should realize is we're also providing, and a lot more robotics companies are starting to provide this, is robotic as a service. So one of the things with this is that there is not a big capital expenditure that you need to provide. You can actually save money from day one with some of these solutions. So I think that's also a very exciting business model that is starting to see that, we've already been experiencing with email and, and other aspects of like, right, we don't have to set up your own servers, you don't have to set up your own things. So we're providing all that support. So I think that's also a very exciting thing that's been happening in the industry.
Yeah, I love it, Leo. Or maybe we're coining, unless that term already exists. Maybe it's a new term that's going to exist. Robotics as a service, RAS. I guess that you would say that is. So, thank you so much, Leo, for allocating time, spending time with us, and the investment you and your teams have made in working with Microsoft. We truly appreciate it. So, people watching live or maybe the replay, thank you for maybe making the time. As you see on the ticker symbol below, follow ISV Connect Live as a hashtag. Connect with us, follow, or just you can watch any of the replays on aka.ms/ISV Connect Live to listen to all the other ISVs we posted on this channel. Leo, thank you so much. Smooth sailing. I can't remember what the term is. I know there's a term that you wish good luck to sailors sailing, but I hope there's always favorable winds pushing the partnership together. We truly appreciate the time. And for people watching or watching replay, please enjoy this video. Thank you again, Leo. Thank you again, Video Robotics team, for the partnership.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so it's fair winds and following seas.
Thank you. Perfect. Sounds good. Okay, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Brian.
With the inVia and Dynamics 365 automation solution, we intelligently reshape the warehouse flows, driving the next generation of e-commerce. We built a system that not only helps warehouses digitize and automate their operation, they're also getting ahead of the labor constraints that is becoming more and more relevant. We're providing this as a subscription service that is based on productivity, really eliminating the need for our customers to buy and maintain their own equipment. Our robots, which are a lot more advanced than other AMRs, help us manipulate the goods autonomously, completely eliminating the need for people to walk inside the warehouse. And this is a critical step given the shortage of labor and the amount of time that each person has to spend inside the warehouse. On top of this, our robots adapt to the existing infrastructures. So we can drop robots in pretty much into any standard warehouse, map the warehouse, and really deploy over a weekend and bring a system up very, very quickly.